This is episode 56 of the Andrew Hines Real Estate Investing Podcast. Welcome to episode 56 of the Andrew Hines Real Estate Investing Podcast. Today, I have Kyle Ford and Chelsea Middleton on the show, and they are some of the most exceptional real estate investors that I've ever had on the show. They're just go-getters. The ideas that come out of them, the creativity, and just the hustle. I just loved this conversation. We really dug into the weeds about marketing for vacation rentals. We dug into specific mortgage financing structures for multifamily deals, for single family deals, for doing BRRRRs, that's the buy, renovate, rent, refinance, repeat model. We've talked about it a lot on this podcast. Kyle's a mortgage broker by trade. He is a savvy real estate investor. Chelsea is in the design business with a marketing background. They make an incredible team as an investor couple. And you're just going to love this episode. I really shouldn't say any more. Just a quick bit of housekeeping. The next Greater Hamilton REI meetup is happening on Thursday, March 19th. If you're not already in our private group, please find the link to that in the show notes for this episode and add yourself. The event link will be posted to the announcements section of the group. These events are constantly the highlight of my month. I love having the opportunity to talk to fellow investors and share and help each other learn and grow. And I know you're going to get a lot of value out of it if you attend and you are in fact interested in growing your own real estate portfolio. So please just make sure that you do add yourself an RSVP so that we can keep our venue apprised of our numbers. Without further ado, here is episode 56. Yes, we're all the way at 56 with Kyle Ford and Chelsea Middleton. Hello and welcome to the Andrew Hines Real Estate Investing Podcast. I have Kyle Ford and Chelsea Middleton on the episode. And I got that right, didn't I?
Yeah.
Thanks for having us, Andrew.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you for coming. You guys drove up from
Kitchener.
Kitchener?
Yep.
Yeah, so about 45 minutes, I guess.
Yeah, it was no traffic.
No traffic. Take the old Highway 6.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is a pretty cool episode. We were talking at a real estate networking event a few weeks back and spilling all the beans, and I'm like, save this for the show. So for those who aren't familiar with Kyle and Chelsea working as a team doing multifamily BRRRRs. So when you buy, fix, renovate, and refinance a multifamily property, you guys are working on a 10 unit. I think we're going to talk about that.
Yep.
Yeah. And then you also have vacation rentals that you are crushing it with systematically, dotting your I's, crossing your T's, and we're going to dig into all the details. So before I say any more, if you guys could just kind of, maybe we'll start with you, Kyle, tell me a little bit about what you do, and then we'll have Chelsea kind of share her piece of the puzzle, and we'll go from there.
Great. I started in real estate really in March 2015. Got into single family rentals, fixed them up, re-rented them out, moved into small multifamily stuff. 3 units, specifically triplexes, buying some underperforming stuff, doing mostly clean patch paint, pretty light renovations, fixing them up, turning the tenants over, increasing the revenue. Got into flipping houses, accidentally bought my first cottage, and kind of went from there, and then got into the bigger multifamily stuff, as well as a different type of money lending, private lending, that type of stuff.
Yeah, you're a mortgage broker or agent as well?
Yes, I'm a mortgage agent as well. Yep.
Okay, and when did you get into that?
So I actually in 2012 I was licensed as a financial advisor. So I started on the more conventional side of things. So mutual funds, life insurance, the classic pay down your mortgage, that side of the business. And I was really enlightened to a lot of the things that didn't work. And I was looking at the people that I thought were in a great financial position doing things that way. And I was running their retirement calculations, and I didn't like what I saw. So that's why I started investing in real estate. And then fast forward to about 2017, 2 years into real estate, that's when I got my mortgage license, just looking to understand more and be able to monetize the advice I was giving to friends and family about how to get started in real estate.
So that was 2015 you did that?
So 2015, it was 2017 when I got licensed.
Oh, wow. Yeah. You haven't wasted any time?
No.
Okay. So interesting story. So Chelsea, tell me a little bit about your start.
Yeah, so I actually started mainly flipping, and that's when Kyle and I met We flipped our first house together after 2 weeks of dating. So that's an interesting story.
You bought the first flip for 2 weeks.
Yeah,
Oh, okay.
yeah. So
She qualified for financing, so it worked out well.
yeah, so we started out that way, and then started getting into buying the cottages and doing some of the short-term rentals on those. And I'm a designer as well, an interior designer.
Okay.
So I help with all of the projects that Kyle works on, helping with the design part of it, and then also running all of the short-term rental Airbnb cottage rentals as well.
Are you still an active designer?
Yeah, I actually have a home staging business. So I'm a home stager, interior designer as well.
Okay, so when did you start working full time in that field?
I would say it was about 2.5 years ago.
Okay, and were you the first property you flipped? Oops, the first property you flipped, was that with Kyle, or you had already flipped before?
I'd kind of done not really traditional flip. I would live in the house and renovate it and then sell it, that kind of thing. But the first true house that I flipped was with Kyle. Yeah.
Awesome. Okay, so it's
She kept wanting to move into it. Yeah. She's like, don't we need to move into it? Don't we need to move into it? It's like, no, we're just flipping it.
And was that your first flip as well, or you had already done
that
some?
was my second flip. Second flip.
Oh, that's a happy little circumstance you find yourself in.
Yeah.
How did you two meet?
We met through a real estate education company.
Oh, okay.
Yep. Chelsea was working for them at the time, and I was doing some consulting for them as well. She was posting. She was the one who scheduled me for events, and I just sent her an email. We started connecting, and went from there.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Okay, so let's give some context, because we're going to throw around some big numbers of units. We're going to throw around lots of dollars and cents. What does your portfolio look like right now?
So it's we have 25 doors on the long-term rental side, as well as six cottages that I'm not including in that. Those are the short-term rentals, as well as we have a pre-construction condo and a new house as well that we're building as well.
That's for personal?
That's personal.
Yeah.
Yeah. We actually were building it to put an Airbnb in the basement, and we found out Chelsea was pregnant. So we are now changing that from an Airbnb to an in-law, and my mom's going to be moving in to help us out.
Because we need some help. We're busy.
Well, congratulations.
Thank you.
So you're open to the house hack situation?
Absolutely. We currently live in a duplex. It's a modest 1,100 square foot duplex in Kitchener, and we rent out the basement apartment of that. The Airbnb in that unit nets us about $2,500 a month. That covers all of our housing costs.
So you live for free, more or less?
We live for free.
Do you do your own cleaning on the unit, or do you have somebody come in and clean it all?
I do have somebody that comes in and cleans it, just so that I can be a little bit more hands off. There are times where if I know I'm going to be home, I'm just like, oh, I'll just do it. It's not a big deal. But obviously that's not the long-term plan for that.
Right.
I don't really want to always be doing that, but.
And the short-term rentals where we don't live above it, we always hire it out.
Always, yeah.
Chelsea never does that. Just the one in the house that she sometimes does.
Well, if you're there, I get it. Sometimes you're around anyway. I get that, how that can happen. It happens to me with video editing. I'm here. I do have somebody who can help me. Might as well just work on it. This is a tricky thing to navigate. So that's quite a bit. I mean, what would you say at a high level before we dig in? Because just to kind of conceptualize how you got to, 31 doors and roughly 5 years of being active for, I guess we just clicked over to 2020. So what would you say was the secret sauce there? Did you have an advantage getting started, or just good mentors, or a combination?
Combination of everything. I've invested in education. I've invested in mentorship right out of the gate to surround myself with the right people. And then right from the beginning, I took the approach of taking a smaller piece of the bigger pie. So what I mean by that is partners, joint venture partnerships, using private lending to acquire deals that were, I kind of use the term, punching out of my weight class, getting into properties that I would have never qualified for, using my line 150 of my T1 General. Yeah. So getting creative on the financing to allow me to kind of go into properties that were what some people might think is out of their reach.
Okay. Yeah, that's smart too. If you can kind of connect with other people and you pool your resources and you're able to do a bigger deal, sometimes that small piece of a big pie can be really, really worth it.
That's right.
Especially when you're getting into big buildings,
Yes.
which might be a nice little segue for us now to talk about. So you gave us a figure of, I think you said 25 doors,
Yep.
including the 10 unit that
That's
you just
including
bought?
the 10, yeah.
So tell me the story. So when we were talking the other day, I'm like, no, save this for the podcast.
Yeah.
Because I love it. And, I want to have the enthusiasm, but now I forget some of the details. So we'll relive it.
Okay.
Tell me about it.
So we purchased the building January 4th of 2019. So last year. When we bought that building, it wasn't a secret. Like, it was on the market for a couple months. It was overpriced. The listing agent had no numbers. Like, they might as well have been written on a napkin. So this property was well under market rents and not in good condition. So when the other challenge with the building is the seller wanted you to be firm in 2 weeks. Commercial financing, you know this, Andrew, it's not happening.
3 months would be a success story.
Yes, exactly. So what we went in, everyone else was evaluating it based on a cash flow metric. I evaluated it purely on a cost per unit. I knew I could get it at 130 costs per unit. I have appraisals of smaller units at 250 per unit, and I knew it would cost me 50 to 70,000 to do it. So just high level, quick math. I calculated $500,000 in profit just the first day.
Yeah, so let's dig into that a bit further.
Okay.
When you value multifamily buildings, for those listening, watching at home, appraisers want to use a cap rate. Mm-hmm. Banks want to use a cap rate, which is basically a rate of return on your operating income. When you have really bad rents, sometimes you can't really value a building that way. That's why you'll see houses in Hamilton or buildings in Hamilton trading at a 2% or in Toronto at like a 1.5%. Mm-hmm. It doesn't make logical sense and the bank won't finance it, but it's still worth something if somebody such as yourself, Kyle, and Chelsea working together here can come in and add some value. And why don't you tell me about your strategy to add value?
So we went into the building right out of the gate. We had our inspector, we had an engineer and a home inspection report out of the gate that indicated some problems. We had the tenants let us know of all the issues that they had in the units as well. We came to the conclusion that it just was not possible to do the rehab on the building, working around the people that were working around the current tenants. So the concern here in Ontario is, how do you get the tenants out? The N13 construction, as a landlord, you have the right to do an N13 construction notice, which is a 120-day notice. What that means on a commercial property is you have to give 3 months of free rent plus the last month rent.
Oh, you have to give it for free?
Free.
Oh, I didn't know that. So
Yeah.
you give them the notice and you're like, you're free from here on out.
Yeah, exactly. So now the risk on that is that the tenant can come back at the same market rent.
You can do an increase though, right?
You can do an increase. You can take it to tribunal. You can say, listen, I've done major renovations. I've done major changes, and you could fight for an above market increase.
But it still won't be anywhere near what market rent is.
100%. It's not going to be what market rent is. So when we went in, we served that notice. And then once the tenants had accepted the fact that they did have to leave, they were much more negotiable to a cash for keys offer. So what I do want to say when you do this strategy is a lot of people like to go in right out of the way and cut the corner of the N13. But that's where you're going to get your name in the newspaper on this kind of stuff. So what we treated the tenants with dignity and respect right from the gate. We gave them as much notice as we could. My property manager helped relocate. I think we relocated 5 of 9, and 3 of the other tenants actually bought houses. So it was, though the one tenant might not agree that it was a success story, all in all, I think it went pretty well.
Yeah.
And we got 1 unit vacant, 9 of the 10 units, all signed N9s. Yeah. So a lot of people go for the N11, which is the mutual release. We got the tenant to sign the tenant release so that they couldn't come back and say they were coerced later to sign a mutual release.
Quick note on that strategy, and this is brilliant because we were talking about this the other day. I loved it. They have to leave. They know that. You're investing in that to begin with.
Yep.
But then you're saying, well, look, you're already leaving. Why don't we just, get you settled somewhere else? Because I really don't know how long this is going to take. It could be a year, could be a year and a half, could be 6 months. I don't know.
Yep.
So why don't we just get you settled in a new place here? How let's work it out. I'll give you what, $2,000, or how much were you giving them typically?
So on average, the total cost was close to in the $35,000-$40,000 range, but that includes the 3 months of free rent. So that's about that, and they were almost $1,000 a unit. So that was about $3,000, and then we also about $1,000 in cash.
Okay. So $1,000 when you're shaking hands at the end was enough.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
what we actually negotiated as well is we let the tenants know that we were concerned about some of the foundation issues and the spring melt. So we said if they can get out sooner than the 4 months, we'll advance that what would have been a free month back in cash because it gets us in the units a little bit sooner. So a couple of them took advantage of that, and basically they got more instead of the free month's rent. They took cash to be out sooner than the 4 months they were given.
Can you get away with that? I guess as long as they sign the N9.
It's a tenant agreement. So the tenant agreed to it. We did not force them. They had their full 4 months, but we incentivized them by saying if you can be out a little bit sooner, instead of taking the free rent, you're going to get cash.
And you already had the N13 signed. At that point, it was, okay, hey, I have an N9 here, and we can e-transfer you as soon as we've got this signed.
Exactly.
So it's all on the up and up, all legal, and you're allowed to give incentives.
Yep.
Because I had some confusion around that originally, too. I didn't know if you're allowed to. And then I've heard it talked about even on CBC, and they're like, yes, it's totally legal to do this if it's mutually agreed.
The tenant has the right to choose.
Yeah.
They can choose to accept a cash for keys compensation.
Yeah.
So
That's just fantastic. You know, I gotta say, like, as I told you before, and I know the people who listen to this, like, they know, I've been so concerned with the getting tenants out, right? 'Cause to me, I say this a lot, knowledge mitigates risk, control mitigates risk. Mm-hmm. And when I feel like I'm not in control of what the tenant can do, and the tenant can control me, that's where it made me less comfortable. But when you do the N13, the real beauty is they can't say no matter what, that building's getting fixed.
Yep.
Provided they're not in the middle of a lease, right? Like if they're in the middle of a lease term, then how do you do it?
As far as my understanding is, you have to wait till the end of the lease.
Yeah, so then you're waiting, right? So if you're buying a building, and I was looking at one where the property manager was trying to sell it, and they just filled up all the units, and it needed extensive work done.
Right.
And I'm like, why are you doing that? You just ruined this deal.
Yeah.
Putting brand new tenants, and now we got to wait a year. Then we got to get them all out and pay them.
Yeah.
So time is money when you're dealing in private money.
That's right. And just a couple things to tie back to the tenant side is you got to make sure that when you give that notice, if you say you're going to take exactly a year, now tenants are in a position where they're going to sign a 1 year lease somewhere else and then can come back. So I recommend never saying a year. 6 to 18 months is kind of what I would say on that side. And then the other thing too is people want to start fixing the units up fixing units right away. Yeah. If you have units fixed and ready to go, you now have to offer the tenant a comparable unit. Yeah. So what we did is we actually and there was some other foundation and structural repairs that we had to do too, which is the other reason why we waited. But we stripped the units down and we left them, so there was no debate about whether they could move into another unit.
So you didn't need to offer them because they weren't done, and
they
you weren't going to
available.
finish them. You're buying your time.
Exactly.
Yeah. That's just awesome. Who'd you guys finance it with?
The property was 100% financed out of an RRSP.
Okay, so you being in the mortgage world, did you find your own lender?
I did.
An individual.
I did. An individual guy. He had the full $1.3 million purchase price inside his RRSP.
So $1.3 million purchase. He funded the whole thing because he likes you, trusts you. Yep. What about your construction funds?
So we got a second and a third mortgage for construction financing, and we used about $200,000 of our own cash that we pulled from another property later on in the renovation. Okay. When this deal came across my plate, I wasn't liquid. I didn't have the funds to do it. So this type of creative financing was the only way I could get into the deal.
This is a theme. So I just launched Jordan's episode on the big deal that she did. I think I told you she bought for $1 million in, and then they got appraised at $3.8 million. Yep. And now we're going to talk about another deal, maybe not as big in numbers, but you're still buying similar price point, adding a ton of value. So how did your numbers look on this?
So we purchased for 1.3. We're into it for approximately, we're still ironing out some final costs here, but we're into it for about $1 million, a little bit over.
And that includes carrying?
That includes it's approximately $650 in renos right now, and $400 in financing fees, interest costs,
and like property tax and all that stuff too. Yeah. So reno $600, and then you've got carrying. You say $400. And are you seeing the light at the end of the tunnel here? Are you almost in a position to refinance this with a bank?
Yeah, we are at 8 of 10 full right now. Okay. So we have 2 units left to fill. I'm going to go through the CMHC appraisal process to get the building CMHC assured, but I'm in the process of getting bridge financing on this right now. The appraiser that I've been talking to, he's seeing no lower than $3 million as the value. So we're going to be pushing for a higher value, closer to the 3.5 mark. But the 3 million is our low end on the appraisal.
So very similar then to Jordan's deal.
Yeah.
So your numbers are very similar. Yeah. So to purchase and improve, you are about 2.3 million.
So it was 1.3 purchase, but it was about 1.35 with closing costs.
Oh, okay.
And about $1.05 million. So it's about 2.4 we're into it total.
Okay. So $1.05 million.
$1.05 million, 650 for renos, 400 for
okay. 650 for renos.
So, yeah.
Get my numbers straight here.
I'm giving myself a little bit of a buffer here.
Yeah, because you still got a bit more to pay, right?
Yeah.
You're not quite there.
Got to find a couple final invoices to settle up here, and so
2.4 million in. You're gonna try and get it done with a Schedule A bank, CMHC insured, I guess. Maybe not a Schedule A bank,
not
but
Schedule A. Yeah, looking at some of the trust companies right now,
like a First National or
First National. Computer Share funds a lot of these.
So Computer Share, I thought they were administrator. I didn't realize that they were their own trust company.
Yeah, so that part I'm still a little bit confused at because I'm going through First Nat. A friend of mine, Paul, who just did one of these, said his lender came in as Computer Share. So
yeah, so my understanding is they're a mortgage administrator. So all these trust companies don't really know anything about administering mortgages, so they use a Computer Share. If that's correct, I don't know for sure that's correct, but I see it when I search title. Sometimes I see Computer Share. I'm like, that is not an actual bank or trust company.
Yeah, so I'm learning that part too. So I'm still going through that process.
Yeah,
so.
I was always so confused by that. Mortgage broker geeking out right now.
Yeah.
We've got 2.4 million in. You're figuring maybe 3.4, 3.5.
Yeah, I'm thinking my appraisal is going to land in the 3.2 to 3.3 million range. That's where I feel that we're gonna land.
Okay, so let's just say it was 3.2.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're gonna get, what do you figure you can get? 75%?
Yeah,
or even more.
If I'm going CMHC, my DCR ratio works at the 85% loan to value. I'm at a 1.35, I think.
Okay, so again, we're getting geeky with mortgage terminology here. We're gonna dig back into that in a second here, but hypothetical, because this is still hypothetical at the moment.
Yeah.
We'll simplify it. So that's a new mortgage of 2.72 million. When you're in for 2.4, which means that you've got money to play with. So take out. You're gonna not only be in to the building with nothing. You're gonna have a takeout of, let's just see, hypothetical at the moment, of course, about 320,000. Sound about right?
Yep.
Chelsea, what are you going to do with that?
Well, I think that it's going to be into the beachfront development is what we're doing with that. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Beach development?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You have a beach development. Is this different from what we've already talked about? I saw you building a house on Grand Bend, right?
Grand Bend,
Yeah.
We own a football field on the Grand Bend beach that we're going to be developing the property. We're looking at the original plan was to build like a pretty substantially sized beach house, but we're actually looking up. There's a potential to do a 4-unit condo on the property.
Okay.
Which we're kind of kicking around right now. I just don't know if the timelines are going to work. We might stick with our original plan. So.
Okay, so before we jump into that, because I mean, good God, this is at least 2-3 episodes of stuff. No, I really like it. So we might have to break this down, but I think for this specific thing, because what I did is I posed some questions to my Instagram followers this morning saying, hey, we're gonna basically nerd out on mortgages later on. Yeah. And what do you have questions on? So one of the questions, of course, is financing more than 5 units, right, which is where we're at right now. This whole concept of CMHC insuring an investment property and going to 85% has probably got a lot of people scratching their head and saying, wait a minute, you can't CMHC and insure an investment property. And that's true on the residential side, but it's not true under commercial lending, which is what you're doing. And commercial lending doesn't mean it's a retail store. It doesn't mean it's a dry cleaner or anything like that. It just means that it's more than 5 units or 5 or more, depending on the bank. And now it's handled by commercial lending. In that department is the lovely little land of more is better. And more is more stable as long as you're following the rules. So 85%, why wouldn't everybody just go grab 85% loan to value on these loans? What are the implications to that?
Well, the cost, the total premium is around 5.5%. So some people are looking at it from the consumer lens of that's a big ticket. The second issue is you have to qualify for it. You have to have really strong income to meet their debt coverage ratios in order to get that 85% loan to value.
Yeah.
CMHC can be a little bit stingy with this stuff. They're using some of their market analysis. And in a building like this, if you look at CMHC's guideline for income, they say Preston for a 3-bedroom is $1,000 a unit.
Okay.
I'm getting $2,000 a unit.
So they're not going to take your 2,000. They're going to.
So they're going to be there. This is once again, I mentioned Paul, a friend of mine who went through this. He had 5 different CMHC appraisers come out and reanalyze his property, which is how he got the higher loan to value, because he did a full empty, full re-rent. Yeah. So even though they're saying the market rents are this, well, I have 10 new leases that say that the market rents are actually this.
Yeah, so you got to convince the appraiser. So they send out their own appraiser.
Yes.
You don't pay for that. You just pay their fee.
Right.
So normally with commercial appraisals, you're going to be into about $2,500, $2,000. So it's more than residential. And then sometimes you got to get other reports. Did you have to get anything else, or are you in the process?
In the process. We got to go through the environmental.
So they're going to make you run a proper phase 1 environmental.
Yep.
Could you tell our listeners and viewers a little bit about that?
I'm learning a little bit about it myself. If I'm going to be upfront, we had a phase 1 on the purchase of the property. That was the seller had that, which wasn't ideal. I would have liked to do on my own, but I was comfortable with what I saw, and we didn't. It wasn't required by my lender.
Okay, but when they gave you that, and this is anyone buying commercial, get a phase 1. If the person doesn't have it, you should probably pay for one, because if there's contaminants, lenders won't cover you. So they're looking to see so that phase 1 said there was no obvious issue.
Correct.
Okay. Yeah, that's what you're kind of looking for. If they say recommend phase 2, then you got to start thinking, well, do you have a phase 2? And if they don't, if they live down the street from a dry cleaner, or it was a dry cleaner, or it lived down the street from the building's down the street from a gas station, and there was a leak or anything like that, you could have problems.
It could be 7-figure problems.
Exactly.
I've heard some crazy stories on that side. So,
and 7-figure opportunity, right? Buying contaminated land, if you're willing to pay for the reports and find out what it takes to clean it up. Carmen did that on a deal, and it's probably her biggest home run. It's a grand slam. It's
amazing.
Like just millions and millions in profit because she was willing to do that on a property.
Yep.
And the total solution was not that much, like 100 or 200 grand.
Yep. It's all about the numbers, right? Yeah. What's the ROI? If it makes sense, then I couldn't agree more.
Is there anything else we should cover? The average person might not have a grasp on when it comes to the commercial buying process. We've said it takes a long time. Prepare yourself. When you're buying, Kyle, you and I are on the same page. And Chelsea, you're on that page too. Private money's the way to go.
Yeah.
Usually, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because you know what the bank asks for, right? The banks are a pain in the butt.
It's ridiculous.
I like to use the analogy now. If you're buying with private money or buying with bank financing, you're working with a shovel while investors are working with a bulldozer.
Yeah.
And it's not that bank financing doesn't serve a place and there's a time and a place for it. But on acquisition, we are buying everything with private financing now. Yeah. So we can move quickly, acquire properties that don't meet the bank guidelines today.
Yeah.
And then making value-added improvements so they do meet the bank guidelines later as a clear exit strategy.
Yeah, you're really just moving forward aggressively. And think of the opportunity here, right? Everybody else is trying to figure out, how do I do this with the bank? And you come in and say, I don't need to do this with a bank. And then you just come right through, you get the money you need where no one else could figure out how to put the money together. So being educated in financing, I think going and working as a mortgage agent, although I have to admit, wasn't the funnest thing I ever did. Man, did I ever learn stuff, right? And how much have you learned by being in this role, doing this, working with the investors you work with? Working under Carmen has been huge for me just because everything with her is private money. And I've seen her make so many millions of dollars in equity just because she was there at the right time and could close fast and make it easy on the seller.
Yeah. Yeah. And working in the industry gives you ideas of guidelines for exit strategy. But I think people need to know that they don't need to be a mortgage agent to learn this. Trust the numbers. Yeah. Trust your numbers and look at the creative ways that you can acquire a property, and then work with a mortgage agent that you trust to help get you exit from that private money.
Yeah, work with somebody who knows. Like this is what I say for any deal. Is if you pick what you want to do, find the person that's doing that type of deal successfully. Find clients of that person. If it's a mortgage broker, you're trying to find the right one. Find one that's constantly getting deals done for people doing exactly what you want to do. And then you work with that person. Make it easy. Don't just go work with somebody who says, I can do this. Yeah, I can do that. Everyone's going to tell you that. Go find the person who did just do it 10 times, because then they're not going to have any trouble doing it 11th time.
Yep.
That was like kind of a hard lesson I had to learn, because I was with the student rental game getting said no to so much. Eventually I'm like, well, there's like a million people who just bought student rentals. I'm going to start calling them and find out who they used.
Yeah.
Done.
Yeah.
Problem solved.
Yeah. You don't need to overcomplicate it. Sometimes
Keep it simple.
Keep it simple, right?
Actually, I'll pull up Instagram just on the commercial topic before we transition, because I did have a couple of questions there. Take my phone off airplane mode. Tommy Ivanoff. Would be great if we could discuss the fundamentals of financing commercial properties 5+ units. Maybe we should do that right now while we're on this topic. So we talked about CMHC financing and how that can be quite expensive. That's 5.5% added onto your mortgage. So you're getting 85%, and then they're going to add another 5%. So you're financed over 90% when it's all done. So it's expensive.
Yep.
Benefit to that would be lower interest rates for the life of that mortgage if you don't touch it.
Yep.
So when everyone else is getting 3.5%, you might get 2.5%.
Yep. Cash out. You're getting so much of your cash out. So your ROI, as long as you can debt service that, which CMHC is going to very much scrutinize. Yeah. You're getting your cash out, so you can be moving that to a better perform, or moving it to the next deal, I should say.
Right, moving it to the next deal. Absolutely. Like, your return on investment is infinity. You're pulling money out.
Yep.
So that's great. Okay, so the other fundamentals, normally you're 75% loan to value, but the banks have to make the loan, the ratios work. If they don't work, meaning you don't make enough income, they're going to cut your loan to value back. Yep. And I'm seeing the same thing happen on residential side too. So it's not like it's only commercial. Yep. The residential side in say CIBC, for instance, they very much take that approach. Debt coverage ratio, you don't make it, they just cut you right back.
Yep. There's a commercial element to the residential financing when you have 3+ rental properties. Yeah. They're looking at you as a business. Yeah. And if you can't debt service to their guidelines, they're going to scale you back.
What's your standpoint long term? Are you thinking everything on the commercial side going forward?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We can get it in the beginning. It's fine. We were never concerned about asset protection. Wasn't really a big thought for me. When I started, I didn't have any assets, so I wasn't concerned about that. But going on the commercial side, being able to get things in a company name, being able to really compartmentalize is, and then also the return. It was scary to think of going commercial to begin with, but the returns are there to support management, to support infrastructure, so we can be a true investor and not my triplexes. I still need to be a little bit more hands-on to make the numbers work. But with the commercial properties, there's enough cash and income that I can really step back.
So you're saying the larger number of unit buildings, you're kind of getting economies of scale, because 10, 20 units in one place, you can have the same maintenance guy look after all of them. You can, whereas if you have separate properties have separate roofs that need to get done, separate furnaces, centralization is a cost savings over the long run. But in terms of the financing side, it's really awesome when you're on commercial side, because they're no longer looking at you, the individual, so much. Yep. Now it's about the individual properties. Yep. Sure, you, the individual, need to have decent credit and sustainable income for your own life, but they're looking at the business, not you specifically.
Yep. So and I just want to jump in there, Andrew, because I think you just nailed it. I hear so many people come to me saying, "I want to go commercial, so they don't look at me anymore." They still want to see your credit. Yeah. They still want to look at your net worth. They want to make sure that you can put groceries and keep the lights on the table. And the other thing they're going to look at is experience. Yes. They're going to ask questions of, resume. Have you done this before? Let's see a resume. You're buying a 20-unit building. Who's managing this thing? Are you hiring a professional company? If it's you,
what are your qualifications?
What are your qualifications? And I think that's that conversation is being missed a little bit on the commercial side. So I'm really glad you brought it up.
Oh, absolutely. Well, this comes from being in the business. Most people, like if I go to regular networking events, very few people have done this. Very few people have gone that road. They stick to what's most known, which is your standard flip, your standard rental property, and obviously that there's nothing wrong with that. But if you want to crank it up, I think you gotta learn the next phase of the puzzle, and the next piece of the puzzle. Okay, so just Kellen Panicha said trust companies. You had mentioned trust companies. I think you were talking about some non-Schedule A banks that are still lending for you, like First National. Home Trust is another company that I know. They're a B lender, but they will lend on multi-residential.
Yep.
And more aggressively, right?
Yep.
So somebody could you have to work with a broker, but you could work with your broker and skip a lot of the requirements and still close fast.
Yep.
They're not going to fund your construction, but you could certainly use them as an option. And Okay, so the rest of this stuff is more oriented on single families, which we'll get into. Okay, so let's move into the Airbnb side of things. And Chelsea, why don't you just kind of take the lead, because we can't let Kyle do all the talking.
Yeah, for sure. So it's funny because I feel like we always traditionally say, when it comes to short-term rentals, we just naturally say Airbnb as like kind of the go-to. That's what it is. But for the most part, when I'm doing cottage rentals, it's I would say maybe now 15 to 20% actually on Airbnb, and the rest I run that myself, doing private bookings. So it's actually kind of interesting. We always say Airbnb, but I'm not really actually Airbnb-ing these cottages in these short-term rentals. So.
Yeah, and when you mentioned this to me, I just thought it was so clever. So why don't you tell a little bit about how you're able to get that 80% that aren't on Airbnb? Yeah,
so I'm all over buy and sell groups on Facebook, and I'm posting pretty much every day. So I'll join buy and sell groups from all over Ontario, people that I know that would be traveling to our cottages. We have mostly in Grand Bend. We do have one in Wiarton as well. But for the most part, people are usually traveling about 3 hours to a cottage, or less than 3 hours. So I join buy and sell groups from all of those areas, Hamilton, Burlington, Oakville, Mississauga, Toronto, Kitchener. And
so
then
anywhere within 3 hours.
Pretty much,
if they can make it, you're going to target it.
Yeah, like I wouldn't go as far as Ottawa, because I know nobody's going to come down. So that's kind of my target market. And then I do several posts a day, and I get a ton of private bookings from that. So people just message me over Facebook.
Okay, so you said a couple of things I really want to dig in on. One is like a basic understanding of marketing and your target customer. I feel like so many real estate investors don't think about their end customer when they're renovating a house, when they're thinking about one to buy. Like, who are you trying to attract here, right? There's so many people say like, oh, I want to buy a student rental. Well, what kind of student would you like to rent to? You're thinking, what kind of person would I like to rent to? Somebody who probably is a professional, yes, works in Toronto, wants to get away. And they might enjoy, you said you even get rentals in the winter.
Yeah.
Which a lot of people are just shutting down in the winter.
Yeah, it's funny because a lot of people, when they talk to me about these cottages, they automatically say, well, the winter's a write-off. And I'm like, why? Aren't you looking for something to do in the winter? Like, as a Canadian, there's rather than going down south to do something Canadian and go to a cottage.
You can only go to Niagara Falls for so many weekends.
Yeah.
Right? So
do something different. So you just have to make it so that these cottages have things that are entertaining for people. So we have the cottage in Wiarton has a hot tub, and we get weekend bookings all through the winter because there's lots of couples that, want to go and do something different for the weekend. There's a hot tub. They can relax by the water. Mm-hmm. And that makes it so that it's rentable all year round.
Is there anything else you needed to do? Like, is there like a snowmobile culture there that people, do you get people who are coming up for a snowmobile weekend?
We certainly do. We have a lot of, especially in the Wiarton area, we get a lot of people that are snowmobiling groups. There's people looking for places also that have ice fishing. Our cottages don't have ice fishing, but that doesn't seem to be a problem. So it's just really finding like something that people can do that, is like wintertime entertainment, even if it means just providing some games in the cottage or something like shuffleboard or ping pong or foosball or something like that. So
okay.
Chelsea also does some really cool things that she posts pictures of hot chocolate.
Yeah.
I was about to say, you must take a real approach with this, being, interior designer, having a flair for design and knowing what's appealing.
Oh, that's another big thing, like like the year-round rentals as well. And you talk about who your target audience or your target customer is for this. And when we renovate the cottages as well, right? So we buy them and renovate them, and then we can get our max rent throughout the busy season too. And we really like our one cottage. We call it Scoot Shack. Scoot's our dog. We renovated it to be Insta-worthy, basically. Okay. So, kind of funky things. I went with like a pineapple theme. There's all these different pineapples and like macrame swing chairs and things that people would want to post on Instagram. And that's kind of what the culture is now. And these, young people are planning their vacations around what pictures they can take. Right. So it's all about creating that experience. And I feel like that's how we're really winning with these cottages, is creating that really fun experience. That's awesome pictures, that kind of thing.
Yeah. So you're not selling a rental. You're not selling, 2 nights in a stay. You're selling a solution, an enjoyable weekend, which has all the things, including selfies, thought of.
Yeah.
Thought of. And what a difference that is. I mean, thinking about even selling a property to an investor, this is something that I've always said, because I just think it's so critical. When people flip properties and they just throw it on the market, I'm like, why not sell it to an investor? Like, why not flip a property, put a rental in there, or put a renter in there, create cash flow, and then you're no longer selling a property, you're selling a solution to somebody's need for cash flow. So thinking more about the end consumer, thinking about what solution you can bring to them, you guys are like knocking it out of the park with that. That's amazing. Can you do an Airbnb design for me?
Sure. Yeah, it's actually funny because, like I say, I have the interior design home staging business, and I've kind of made myself a little niche. I actually, a lot of people approach me to design their Airbnbs. So I actually stay quite consistently busy with furnishing people's Airbnbs for them. So.
Yeah, can we dig a little bit more into how you present it? Like, first off, you have an Instagram page for one of yours?
For the
like,
cottages?
Do any of your cottages have Instagram pages?
You know what? I actually just started doing Instagram for the cottages because I didn't really see that at first. So mostly it's just like the Facebook page and website. But
okay, so you have a website for them?
Yeah.
Each one?
One website for all of them, so I can cross-sell.
That's actually brilliant, too, because you're not trying to get people who are already planning on going to Wiarton. You're trying to convince them that they should come in the first place.
Yes.
Oh, man, I love that.
With Scoot Shack, our highest rental one, that one's in Grand Bend, and it's almost full. So when people click on it, and they say, we want this one, it's booked. Well, below that, there's 2 more that are under renovation. So we haven't even closed on those properties, and we have several weeks rented this summer on those 2 properties based on the cross-sell on the website.
Just because they can see how cool the other one is.
It's going to look like that.
You've created the marketing engine to just do the work for you. They go onto the thing. So when you're posting in the group, they can click the link you post, and it's probably a pretty nice website. What is the website?
SoVacay, like SoVacayRentals.com.
So SoVacay
Yes.
.com.
Very Insta.
Yeah, SoVacay, like Southern Ontario Vacation Rentals.com.
Love it. Did you have a background in marketing at all?
I did.
Yeah, I was about to say you must have. Just the way you're thinking about this. Is marketing at the end of the day should be common sense. I think people just complicate things. And when you study marketing, you learn to simplify things.
Totally, yeah. I went to school for marketing originally, so yeah.
I sensed it.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Okay. Why don't we run through, tell me about this Wiarton one, because I know that area, it's pretty remote compared to Toronto. So the fact that you're able to get consistent winter business there is awesome. Probably going to be inspiring to a few people. What do your numbers look like in the winter? You're getting weekend visits.
Well, December was 3,200.
3,200, yeah.
For December, which was pretty good.
Yeah.
For December, and then February, what are we around? 15 to 1,700.
We'll probably be close to 2,000 by the time.
For February?
Yeah.
What about January?
January was slow.
Yeah.
And that has to do with the snow wasn't great up there in January.
Okay.
So it's kind of that in between
So
weather.
you weren't going to draw people very well because of that. So January, we were like $500 or nothing at all.
I don't think we were anything in January. No. But February is already booking like crazy because of the snow and
So
that
they've
kind of
got
thing,
good snow now.
Yeah.
The snowmobilers, they were asking if it's available, but the snow didn't really hit for them.
Yeah.
So
Gotcha.
Weather dependent.
Yeah, that's classic. Okay, so what are we looking at in a typical March? What do you figure March would typically look, or would that be a lower month?
It's probably similar to February, honestly.
Okay, so maybe 2,000 in March. April, what would you think April would be like?
A little bit higher, probably closer to 3.
Okay, so people are starting to want to enjoy nature a bit in
hike-
April.
Yeah.
we're all over the Bruce Trail.
Okay, so you advertise, hey, and I imagine in your marketing, you're probably at different times of the year. Hey, want a great time of year to go out and hike the Bruce Trail?
Yeah.
Book your vacation now.
And by that point, people are so bored. People are like so sick of being inside. Like, let's get out, let's do something. It's a little bit warmer, so it's a good time to do
Going
that.
back to some of the marketing too, in December, one thing that we changed this year that I think has helped at the cottages is Chelsea went and decorated them with Christmas stuff, Christmas tree, that type of stuff. Took pictures of that. People, and then it was like, do something different for Christmas. So on a buy and sell page, you weren't thinking about booking a cottage, but you see this, you're like,
Oh, yeah.
let's do this. Okay, $800 for the weekend. We'll take the family up and we'll have Christmas there. Everything we need is there. So
I can't tell you how much I'm enjoying this. So, May, what do you think? May is that going to be a little higher on that place?
we're 5 to 6 in May.
5 to 6,000. So we'll call it 5,500 in May. June, you're getting into summer now. What do you see? Well, late spring.
I have to look 6 to 7.
Yeah, 7.
7.
Because then summer would be about
85.
85, yeah.
So July, we're gonna say 8,500. August, I'm calculating month by month. I want to
Yeah,
get a
85.
ballpark. 85 again for August. September probably slows a bit.
Honestly, it's very, I would say like 8. Like
8,000?
it's,
It's
yeah.
a little bit less. It's like it's 7. Maybe.
Okay, yeah, 7 to be
7,000?
fair. Yeah.
People who interesting with Wyerton, people who know Wyerton know that that's the warmest time for the water up.
Yeah, it's nice.
can
September, the long weekend going into September was probably one of the only times I was in the water up there. Yeah. So October, still nice up there.
Yeah,
Still nice.
we did pretty well in October. 45.
Yeah.
45. And then we've got November.
That was not a great one.
No.
Yeah, November's a depressing month.
It is
Yeah.
2,500.
Yeah, maybe.
Okay, so it looks like on the year this year, and maybe that's an anomaly. February sucked.
No, January.
Sorry,
sucked.
January sucked.
January sucked.
Sorry, my mistake. Yeah, so I've got 12 months here. I want to see what do we look like for a sum total. So that's about 53,000. If we divide that by 12, so you're averaging 44.75 a month. Okay, so now that we've got that far, what did you buy the place for?
Paid $325 in July 2016. Sorry, September 2016. There was actually a change in ownership that happened this April, where I owned it with my mom and sister. They sold their interest in the property to buy the beachfront development.
Okay.
And my dad and stepmom and Chelsea bought in at that point. So
Okay.
currently the property is 100% financed at 430 with a 275 vendor take back first mortgage from the initial person.
So we're gonna simplify this. We're gonna call it 430 and
Yeah.
bought last year.
Okay.
100% finance.
Yeah, so it's got a 275 VTB and then $150,000 HELOC from my dad's house.
So vendor take back mortgage VTB is what that means, and that's when the seller actually holds a mortgage back. So they don't get paid; they basically be the bank for you. Okay, so you bought it for 430. You guys had renovations into that.
Not that one we have not renovated.
No
yet.
renovations.
No.
Okay, so you're 430 all in. We'll call it.
Yep.
We'll just call it that for simplicity. So your mortgage, what's your cash flow then? If we're thinking, well, actually, easier question.
Yep.
What are your total monthly obligations on that house average?
3,000.
So monthly obligations are about 3,000. That includes property tax, utilities,
Cleaning.
insurance, cleaning,
Yep.
everything. Okay.
Cleaning, the hot tub maintenance. We have we do spend repair and maintenance budget. Chelsea's managing at this point, so there's not a management fee built into that price. But going forward, she will be taking one.
So average rent being the 44.75, less the 3,000. Your average cash flow is about 1,500 a month. Are you paying down your mortgage at all?
Yeah, we're at 3.99 on the first.
Okay, so you're paying that down. How big is that mortgage?
It's the 275 payments, 1389. I think we're recapturing about 800 of it right now.
So we'll call that about 3%. So about 5,500 a year.
Yep.
So mortgage pay down. And I just simplify stuff.
Yeah,
I don't
no
want to
problem.
complicate it. And then we've got appreciation. So this property is going to go up in value. It's not a high appreciation area, but I would say 2 to 3% is going to be pretty standard.
I think we're okay at 3. The realtor that we spoke with said that 430 price that exchange hands at was low. So the 3% a year I think is fairly waterfront property is going up. So
So you're basically, I got to multiply your cash flow by 12 here. Your total return is $36,100 on a property that you have no investment into. You finance the whole thing, so infinity returns, which is your kind of your game. that's the game you're in with this BRRRR model. Just wanted to show that what's possible. So I mean, just the fact that you're able to get into a property that could cash flow $1,500 a month. You got in at 325, but let's say hypothetically somebody today went in at 430. It's pretty amazing to be able to get 1,450 or 1,500 a month on something at that price point these days.
Yeah, and it's work. It
is work.
That's the one thing with the cottage rental business that some people get excited about. Multifamily, I believe, is more passive investing.
Yeah.
The cottage rental business, there is some passive component to it, but Chelsea works her, can I say, ass off on this?
Yeah.
I'll beep it out. It's for YouTube. I beep it out.
Yeah. It's a lot of work. It really is. It's almost a full-time job on top of the already full-time job that I have. So it's rewarding, and I really enjoy it, but it's a lot of work.
So that was a question. Why, right? Like, I mean, you guys have probably already put yourself in a position where your retirement's taken care of. Now it's why do more? Do you have a goal in mind? I really enjoy running. Like, I would love to do like a motel or something. Like, I love it's more of like a hotel business kind of. Hospitality is enjoyable.
Yeah. I just think that's an enjoyable thing to do. So I like it.
I'm in the same boat. I always wanted a cottage. It was always a goal of mine. And now that we have 6, I want more cottages all over the place now.
Yeah.
So we've talked about making Grand Bend our summer business, and then taking the same model down to the Caribbean over the wintertime, and switching between places. Keep a condo in Kitchener where family is, and have a spot in Grand Bend, spot in the Caribbean, and just
I'm with you.
Yeah. We're gonna have to homeschool.
We're gonna have to homeschool.
Yeah, so many people have their reasons for why pursue it, but it's so much better if you actually just enjoy the work, right?
Yeah.
If it's kind of rewarding. Oh, like, it's so cool to put this together and see this final product. For me, like, I always loved the final like virtual tour on one of my rental properties and being able to show it to people and be like, "Whoa, that's amazing!" Have the students walk in and be like, "Whoa, this is like the best rental I've ever seen." To me, that's always been rewarding, and the being creative part. So I actually just enjoy doing work for that reason. There's lots of things about renovation business and getting into that aren't so fun. Mm-hmm. But so you said you wanted to take this to the Caribbean. I guess we should just, before we get any deeper, we should see if we got any more questions that are relevant to this discussion. Lots about Okay, so terms to consider. So just jumping back to the financing. Obviously, you guys are applying the BRRRR model typically. I talk about that all the time on this show. For anyone who's not familiar, just dig back into the earlier episodes. 1 through 10, we talk about it probably 70% of those episodes. So BRRRR, buy, renovate, rent, refinance, repeat. When somebody's buying, we sort of touched on this. If it's a single family home versus a multiplex, if you were planning to BRRRR it, are you still thinking private money?
If you're asking me about my business and what I would do, I acquire everything with private money. If you're asking as somebody who's just starting out in their first couple of deals, if they can get a conventional mortgage without, because they don't have 10 other properties to show leases, property taxes, and all that stuff, if they can get a conventional mortgage, do a renovation, and that same lender is going to refinance them, I'm all for saving money. If that makes the most sense, it's affordable for you, you qualify, I think that's fantastic. But there's a limit on that. And you need to be able to recognize when you're hitting that limit and move away from it. Because the first couple deals I did were absolutely that model. Conventional close with a conventional lender, fixed them up, refinance with the same lender. But as you're scaling, you got to recognize when it's time to move on.
Well, and one of the things I noticed, even a friend of mine mentioned to me, going to his bank, he was having trouble getting the qualification for owning his own home. And he took a home equity line of credit out on his home to fund the down payment for his investment property he wanted to buy. And then being able to buy that investment property with no rental income because you want to renovate it. Some people are having trouble qualifying for the mortgage. It's all a matter of, will the bank qualify you if you're carrying an extra property with no income, which when you buy, that's the case. Sure, when you go back to the bank, the most critical thing is going to be that you have a lease. So you do your renovation, you get it rented, then you go to the bank and say, hey, I have it rented, it has income. So now your appraiser can look and say, okay, fair market rent, yeah, we agree. And they'll say, yes, this is fair rent. depending on the lender you work with. So the one I typically work with typically wants the appraiser to say what's fair rent.
Schedule A, right?
Yeah,
Right.
it kind of gets difficult when you're doing student rentals and they're talking about family rental rate.
Right.
Because I'm getting like $5,500 a month and they're saying, well, $3,000 is reasonable.
Yeah.
So that hurts, right? It makes it hard to do student rentals. But so when you're thinking BRRRR, if it's a single family home, I think that, Kyle, would you agree? You can, however you want to go in, if you can qualify with the bank, sure. If you don't mind the extra headache. For me, where I'm at, where you're at, we're thinking privates.
Yeah.
Because it's just easy.
Yep.
Easy to me, less stress, less things to think about. Let me focus on finding a deal, creating value, winning.
I would rather, people will say that's $25,000-$30,000 out of your bottom line. I would rather negotiate $25,000 or $30,000 off my next deal. And
Or off
keep
the price.
Or off the price.
Yeah, so yeah, you
Yeah.
might pay it to the lender, but you might be able to literally take that off your price because you tell the guy you'll close in a week and you know your lender can do it.
Yeah.
I mean, check with your broker first. but if you know the game, you have experience in this, you'll find you can get deals done. And whatever you're paying, odds are, if you're smart about it, you can save it. You can find a way to create that value back. So I think that covers the structure. One thing I'll add to this is we were talking about the commercial lending side. Where I'm at from now on pretty much is looking at buying stuff in a corporation and then doing a commercial policy kind of mortgage over the whole thing. So they're still individual properties, but I'm putting them in commercial lending by having over 5 doors in total. And I've talked to multiple lenders that will allow for that. And again, just lets me take the focus off of me so that I can focus on the portfolio and I don't get, oh, you have too many properties. They're like, please get more properties, which is a way more fun response.
Definitely.
Yeah. So that's kind of where my head's at. And then that's what I was trying to ask you before, whether or not I was clear about that. And I think you're on that standpoint too, that you're just thinking big buildings.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's my focus. I like the numbers. I like the metrics on them. So.
Okay, so I'm getting some specific questions. Looking to know how best to approach seller financing and BRRRR in the future. How do you approach seller financing? You got that vendor take back.
I've gotten two. So I have two. Though I have a $295,000 vendor take back on the Wyerton property, and then I got $1 million vendor take back on the beachfront property. So the little bit of the story here, the very first one, I tell everybody in my community that I'm a real estate investor. I can buy properties. I can close cash any condition. So when the Wyerton property came to me, it was a colleague at the time who referred me to the seller. And I went to him and I looked at the property. I'm like, oh, this is great. Do you want to hold financing? And he's like, well, I thought you closed cash. And I said, I can, but if you're able to hold financing, I could probably offer you a better price. If I'm going to pay cash, I need a significant discount on the property. So for him, he had a tax issue on the property. He bought it for a lot less. He was selling it for a lot more. So I suggested that maybe you should talk to your accountant to see if this makes sense. He called me back the next day and his accountant said it was a great idea. On the second, that same lender actually financed our second cottage. He was our lender for that one. He charged us more than the VTB, but nonetheless, he still lent us another mortgage, and he's lending us another one again because we refi that.
So you made a friend.
Yeah, we made a friend. Yes.
Good friend.
Yes. And then with the $1 million vendor take back, it started off with, we were in the community. We talked to, the house got listed, and we talked to a neighbor who told us a little bit about the seller. We found out that they didn't need the money. They weren't selling because they needed the cash. They were selling because they didn't want to deal with the maintenance. So motivation of the seller is very important. We did that as a double offer.
So you gave him two options basically.
Two offers. It was $100,000 more if you'll hold financing, or $100,000 less if we have to pay cash.
Wow, and that was which property?
That was the Grand Bend vendor take back. The Grand Bend Beach.
The $1 million buy.
The $1 million buy.
Or 1.3 million.
A 1.3 list price. We bought it for 1.15.
1.15. Okay. That's a brilliant idea. I've heard that strategy a few times, never tried it. Yep. The multiple offer. I have this feeling that because I brought it up to people and they don't know what vendor takebacks are when I'm trying to negotiate deals. Have not successfully negotiated one yet, but I have this feeling a lot of people don't know what they are. So how are you bridging that gap when you walk in?
We worked with a fantastic realtor on that deal who does have experience with it.
Gotcha.
So and he saw something on that deal that he had never seen before. When we normally with a double offer, you submit the cash offer and the vendor take back offer. Normally what happens is the seller comes back and they want the vendor take back price with the cash condition. This guy signed both offers back.
Oh, that's not supposed to happen.
It's not so. He didn't care. He's like, for an extra $100,000, I'll lend you $1 million. But for $100,000 less, if I get my $1 million, I can invest that my own way.
Yeah.
And make that $100,000. So he didn't really care. The other thing that we do is we offer in our offers, we're willing to pay up to $400 to have our non-refundable to have our offer reviewed by your accountant. So if you just take my offer for vendor take back, I will pay you $400 to pay your accountant to fully review and see if this makes sense.
Wow.
And if you decide not to take it, no problem. You keep my $400.
Wow. So you probably offer that at a point where you know this person's at least seriously considering your offer.
Yes. And it's creating credibility that you're not scared to have this looked at by accountant or lawyer, so it's not sketchy.
Yeah. Well, a lawyer has to draft it all, right?
Yes.
So in Ontario, we have what's called standard mortgage terms. So when you agree to a private mortgage, your lawyers will take care of all the standard mortgage terms, draft up the docs, and then when you close, they'll put it all into force. What parts are you negotiating on the offer? Like you're putting in, you probably have a pre-drafted little blurb that you're using. What are you including as key fundamental terms?
So interest rate, length, and amortization,
and amount, right?
And amount. That would be the four main things. The one thing that they came back with is they wanted the only thing that they were concerned about is they wanted a personal net worth statement.
Okay.
And list of properties and a personal guarantee. So they wanted to know who I was, how much I was worth. I'm borrowing $1 million for you. Do I have $1 million anywhere else? So they wanted to see that type of stuff.
And that's lawyers. No offense to lawyers. I do like lawyers when they're working for me. Lawyers seem to complicate things a little bit sometimes, but that's their purpose, right? They're there to protect their clients, and so you got to understand that when you're doing deals. Yep. You really do. So, okay, that's like the gold nuggets in this episode have been exceptional. Do either of you? Well, I guess we'll just kind of take it one by one. Chelsea, why don't you tell me your big gold nugget or the main thing you'd like to tell to investors who are trying to push to the next step? Maybe they want to get into multi, maybe they want to do vacation rentals. What's your advice to them?
Oh geez, that's a hard question.
Like a big takeaway.
A big takeaway.
Big lesson you've learned over your years as an investor.
Well, the biggest one I've learned is that you don't need to live in every house that you buy. That was kind of my more consumer mindset, I guess, when I was initially going into it, thinking that it was bad to rent a property, but I've gotten so much further, not having my primary residence and this, even if I could afford it, a big house, just living in that, and just, renting where we live has kind of changed my life. That's my biggest thing I've learned.
So renting out the lower unit.
Having the Airbnb in the basement has not having to pay a mortgage is pretty nice.
I've been trying to convince Jordan to do this with me, and she hasn't been into the idea.
Yeah. So. Well, it's hard. I never really, even before when I'd look at duplexes, I never wanted to live. I always thought, I don't want to live with somebody below me and that kind of thing, or above me or whatever. Same exact sentiment. But it's just made such a big difference. And now we're actually able to afford to be able to move to, build our dream house, I guess, and have that space on our own. So yeah, it's just that period of being somewhat uncomfortable to be able to get to that point.
Yeah, so you do find it a little bit of a sacrifice to live with the basement unit occupied?
Yeah, I guess. So to be honest, I actually don't mind it at all anymore.
Yeah. I feel like we think that people judge us for it. It's more in our head. Our head, you have all these properties, you have, you're doing all these rentals. We know how much you charge for a week in your cottage, and you guys live in this this not very nice house, and but we watch people who are overextending themselves to buy this massive house, and they haven't got their investments taken care of. They haven't got their retirement taken care of. So
Yeah.
I think we joke all the time that when there's noise coming out of the basement apartment, we're like, well, they're paying for the place. So
Yeah. So true. Though.
Yeah.
So true. I mean, I have no issue with that. I've actually never owned my own home, always rented. So that I could buy investment properties because it worked out better for my mortgage situation
Right.
to not own. You know?
Yeah.
So,
I feel like there's like a little bit of a stigma behind
Yeah.
that and like what you think that people think anyways, but it's
Yeah.
just, it's silly.
I try not to worry too much about what people think.
Yeah.
But everyone does, at least a little. But you know, being able to tune it out at the right time is key. Yeah. So, Kyle, same thing. Like, what would you want to tell our listeners and viewers?
Build a team. Don't do this on your own. Find the people that can support you and to grow. Don't wait. Don't wait. There's so many people are looking for the perfect deal, the perfect property every time. Time in the market. You know, all the classic cliches. Don't wait to buy real estate. Buy real estate and wait. Yeah. That type of stuff. Find a deal that works for your end goal. So begin with the end in mind. Know what your why is. Know what you're trying to accomplish in real estate. If it's replacing income, don't buy deals that aren't replacing your income.
Very good advice.
Right?
Yeah, all these people who get carried away. Well, why are you investing in the first place?
Yeah.
What's the reason?
What's the reason? If you're trying to replace your income, pre-construction condos are a great investment. They're not income replacing. They're not monthly cash flow coming in.
They could be income reducing.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Great advice. Okay. So if people would like to get in touch with you, what's the best way?
What is it? Email? I guess.
You want Instagram? You want email? You want phone numbers? You tell me.
BRRRR Real Estate, BRRRRealestate.com. Kyle at BRRRRealestate.com is my email address.
So I'll get you to just shoot me that in a text or something.
Yeah, gotcha.
So I got it. Yeah.
And then check out the cottages at SoVacatRentals.com. And
And then I also, with my interior design business, it's Simply Paradise Home Staging and Design. So you can find me on Instagram.
Simply Paradise is the handle?
Yeah, Simply Paradise, and that's kind of an ode to the whole idea of like living in paradise and having that sort of lifestyle. So
clever marketing.
nails it again.
Yeah.
Nails it again. Okay. So outside of all this real estate fun, is there a hobby that you guys engage in together, like things that you do outside when you're not talking about real estate?
Oh, when's that?
Not really.
Travel,
I guess. Yeah.
We love to travel. We just did Europe this summer.
Yeah.
We love the Caribbean. We're down there all the time. I love golf, snowboarding, hockey, and all the classic Canadian stuff. That's it. And then we love food too.
Food. Yeah, food's a big one. Skip the dishes. Big fans of skip the dishes. Several days a week. It's bad.
Yeah, unfortunately we are too. We're both vegan though, so we have like three main options here. It's the options get worn out fairly quickly. So I'm encouraging people to come to Burlington and start plant-based restaurants. If you guys are getting into that business. Yeah. Okay. Well, I really appreciate you coming down. This was fun, super informative. I know our listeners and viewers are going to get a lot out of this, and if they didn't, they weren't listening. So listen to it again, watch it again, guys. It was and give them some love. Go follow them. We'll see you guys in the next one.
Thanks for having us, Andrew.
Thank you. Yeah.
Thanks for watching today's episode. Just a friendly reminder to please rate and review this podcast on iTunes. If you're watching on YouTube, make sure that you smash the like and subscribe and notification bell. And also leave a comment. And hey, while you're at it, why not share this episode with somebody you think it could help? It helps this podcast grow, and I would really appreciate it. Thanks again. We'll see you on the next episode.